welcome to the Total Country Podcast.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Total Country Podcast. My name's Kevin Angel and thanks for joining me. I'm excited to introduce you to a UK country artist today who I think is going to do big things on the UK scene. His debut single, If You Need Someone to Love You, is out now. Today, I'm joined by a name you're going to hear a lot of in the future, Mitchell Kersley. Mitchell hails from Bognor Regis, England. He's relatively new to the country scene, but he's been writing and recording music for years. His sound is a broad mix of contemporary country, outlaw, and a splash of Americana. Mitchell provides a modern take on traditional storytelling inspired by the likes of Brad Paisley, Chris Stapleton, and Garth Brooks. However, as you'll hear in the interviews, he has a massive respect for the country greats that came before them as well. His debut single has already received rave reviews from the UK country media, and he's quickly converting a lot of UK country fans over to his take on the genre. Please do go check out his music after or before this if you want context. But here we go, my sit down with Mitchell Kersley. So I have Mitchell Kersley with me now. Mitchell, how are you? You all right?
Yes, good, thank you. How are you, Kevin?
I'm all right. The last time I've recorded these, I've been able to say it's sunny, but it's not at the moment. So
no.
Anyway, how's quarantine been for you? It's the question that replaces sort of the weather with everyone at the moment, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been interesting. So I had a previous job that I was working, and I left at the wrong time, so I ended up kind of in limbo. But to be honest, it's actually been a blessing in disguise in a lot of ways, because it's given me the chance to work on my EP and to actually finish my EP. If I hadn't have been quarantined, it could have taken quite a bit longer. But it gave me the time to sit down and write and to record as well. Because I do a lot of my work is at home anyway, my writing and my recording, etc. So yeah, it was actually quite handy for me, and in strange ways as well. It actually helps me connect with some friends that I haven't spoken to in quite a while. Just because I ended up getting on the Xbox a fair bit more. I never used to play the Xbox so much, but when you're stuck inside, you're kind of trying to find things to just kind of kill the boredom. But yeah, just and then speaking to friends that I haven't spoken to in a long time, we've sort of reconnected. So that's been really nice. So it's actually been quite a pleasant experience for me, strangely.
And you've recorded some great country covers and put them on your Facebook as well, haven't you? There's a fair few on there.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I started trying to sort of do a lot more often. I mean, because obviously you can't gig at the moment, and to be honest, I haven't gigged in quite a while. I used to gig a lot when I was at university around London, but I just sort of fell out of it a little bit. But yeah, it did give me the chance to sort of sit down and get some covers. I bought a gazebo, funnily enough, put it in my back garden, started recording the gazebo sessions, if you will. Yeah, and doing that outside, so that was cool.
Nice. So a lot of people listening to this are probably new to your music, and this might be the first time they've even heard of you. So talk to me about your journey into music and why country.
So I've always been passionate about music, massively passionate. Even as a kid growing up, I picked up the guitar quite early. I was singing quite early. I was in choirs, things like that. And yeah, in my teens, I sort of I was getting into my sport and kind of more worried about chasing girls than else. So yeah, and then I decided I sort of had this epiphany, and I was like, right, I want to study music. I want to get really into it. I want to sort of dive headfirst in the deep end. So I started studying it at college, and started properly songwriting. I picked up the guitar again, And strangely enough, I don't know if you have them near any near where you are. Do you have the Smith and Western restaurants at all?
No, but I've
No.
heard of them.
Yeah, so they're like a kind of cowboy themed restaurant. And I don't know what it was, but when a lot of the times, because I went there a lot when I was younger, and it was always for birthdays and celebrations, etc., things like that. They always played country music, and something about it just resonated with me. I always liked it when I was younger, and it took me a little while until I stumbled one day upon a Brad Paisley track on YouTube. It was Whiskey Lullaby, and I remember watching it and listening to it, and I don't know what it was, but something. It really resonated with me, and it kind of showed me, songwriting is more like this. Music can be more. Than just standard writing about love and breakups and things like that. And it showed me that it sort of opened this doorway to this new type of music that I'd heard before but never properly explored.
And is Brad Paisley, is that kind of your main sort of inspiration, or do you have others that are real standout artists for you?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely is one of them. He was one of the guys, like I said, I had a lot of his earlier albums and stuff, and he was the sort of gateway, as you will, into country music. And from him, I started listening to country radio and things like that, and I fell in love with Zac Brown Band. I listened to a lot of them. And then it just sort of progressed, and I started to sort of expand what I was listening to and delve into sort of the older type of country, like George Strait, George Jones, Johnny Cash, obviously. And just listening to all different types of country, not just sort of modern country, but classic countries from the country from the 50s, 60s, and things like that.
Cool. So I guess that I assume that kind of very much plays into your sound, because, I mean, we'll talk about the EP in a bit, but you've got quite a broad, like, you straddle sort of commercial country. There's a bit of outlaw in there. There's a bit of Americana. How did you sort of hone and find your own sound?
I mean, I was I've been songwriting for a long time, and I was, my computer was literally full of MP3 files of just stuff I'd made, but none of it really tied together, and I couldn't sort of hone in on one particular sound. And it was when one day I was listening to Chris Country radio, and they had I think it was Twinny or someone like that playing on there, a British country artist. And I'd always assumed, because I didn't have this strong kind of country twang, that I couldn't do it, even though this is the music I loved. I always just assumed, you can't do it. And then I heard that, and it was kind of like, oh, hang on, if they can do it, maybe I can. And I went to Nashville last year as well, and that cemented it for me. When I was there, because I went for the CMA Fest, and that was the best time of my life. I just fell in love. I fell in love with the whole place. I fell in love with the vibe. I fell in love with the people, and that's when I really decided, yes, this is what I want to do. So out from that came the EP. And it's a kind of a mixture of sort of my inspirations and things that have just kind of more come into one. I didn't want to just be fixated on one particular country sound, because at the end of the day, it's British country, so it's never going to be exactly what you're going to get out of Texas, Tennessee, or Florida, or anywhere like that. Anywhere in America, it's always going to be slightly different. So I wanted to sort of mix up the tracks and give different vibes and things. So I've got like an acoustic ballad in there. I've got, like you say, the first track opens with quite a gritty sort of outlaw country. Third track, so my debut single, is quite a bit more pop country. Yeah, and then there's some sort of like after that, Dusk is quite sort of more Americana sort of influence. So yeah, I sort of wanted to sort of just kind of create this, like I said, not just one sound, but kind of a collection of inspirations.
Do you think moving forward, maybe once you started playing them live and things, that you'll go down one route? Do you think you're kind of still finding a path, or do you think you'll always stay quite eclectic?
I think I will always stay eclectic in a lot of ways. There's not one particular path I want to go down. To be honest, at the moment, I'd consider my sound more the gritty sort of outlaw sound. That's the kind of one I sort of like. But all the songs. I'd write them. I put them on the EP. I really like all of them. I like the sound of all of them. It's just what kind of comes to me at the time and how the song plays out. It's just part of the songwriting process.
Yeah. So let's talk about your debut single then. You mentioned it briefly there. It's called If You Need Someone to Love You. Now, talk to me behind the story behind that track, and why did you decide to release that one first? Because it, as you say, it's the most commercial one that stands out by far on the EP, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's definitely the most commercial track on the EP, as opposed to some of the others. I started. Weirdly enough, it just sort of, it was little bits and pieces that came together. So I had that guitar part that sort of opens up the fingerpick guitar part. And then I just sort of, I was driving to the gym one day, and I just suddenly had this sort of, if you need someone to love you, like in my head. It just played over and over again. And I was like, I like that. I really like that melody. So I sort of came back home, decided I'm going to try and put these two together. And it worked out really nicely. And the song came out. It took a lot of edits. Like I did about 4 or 5 different versions of the track. Yeah, with different drum beats, different bass parts. Slightly different lyrics, things like that. And eventually, I sort of came up with what was the final sort of edit. I'm really happy with how it's sort of come out.
Did you go for the commercial one for the purpose that you thought it would get you bigger appeal to start, or did you not consider that?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's kind of like the whole sort of snowball effect. So the first track on the EP is Howlin' at the Moon, and that's going to be my second single, which will release on the 18th of next month. So the idea was to kind of get that out there, get my name out there, get my sound out there, and start that snowball, sort of get the ball rolling. And then by the time that, Howlin' at the Moon comes out, I've got that kind of reasonably sized snowball. That sounds such a cliche, but but yeah, already sort of rolling. Then when the third single comes out, which is my favourite track of the EP, which is probably the most sort of leaning towards traditional country on the EP, which is I Only Cry When I'm Drinking.
Yeah.
Which is probably the most honest track on there. It's pretty heartfelt. So that was kind of the plan.
And does the EP have a theme or like a story running through it, or does each song kind of, sit on its own?
I wouldn't say there's a story running through it, to be honest. It's a collection of songs that I wrote. that's pretty much it. Put very simply, it's just 6 songs that I spent a lot of time, a lot of effort writing, that I wanted to put together into an EP and share.
Was there any others that didn't make the cut, or have you got a couple that people often find that they've almost got 2 EPs by the time they've recorded one?
Yes, so this was the problem with lockdown as well, was that I was writing too much. I had to cut 2 songs from the EP. The final one was quite difficult because it was probably the least country song on there. It was quite experimental, but I wanted it on there because it had this riff at the end that I'd written. It was probably the best riff I've ever written, and I was so pleased with it. And it was a real experimental track. It's basically a track that's I wrote at university, and sort of embellished it over time. And it's just basically a synth playing a B flat the whole way through.
Nice.
Layered vocals over the top. So there's no chord progression or anything. It's just a B flat, and it was a real sort of it was an experiment from me just to see what I could kind of do with that. Rather than fixating on chord progressions and things like that. And it actually gives you a lot of freedom to sort of write around that B flat. You know, you can be a lot more experimental and dip between keys and different keys and things in the bass line and things like that as well. But that got cut. That got cut, sadly. And there's a couple of other sort of country songs that I wasn't too sure about. And I've got to be honest, part of it was financial as well. You know, it costs a lot to make an EP, and getting each song mixed and mastered. I sort of had to think about, was it worth sort of having this 7th song on the EP? And I thought about it, and I thought, no, cut it off, and you know, I can work on it some more and maybe release it as a single later on down the line.
So do you record at home and then send it off for mixing and mastering, or?
Yeah, so all the equipment that I've got is stuff that I've collected over the years. At uni, I spent a lot of time learning the best techniques for home recording, etc. Because obviously it's a lot cheaper than going to the studio. And it's been awesome, to be fair, learning how to use all the software and things like that. I record it pretty much all at home. I make sure that everything's spick and span. I've learned a lot over the years, because the amount of times I'd record a track a couple of years back, and then I'd listen back to it, and then I'd hear like a bang or a little shuffle or something from where something's moved where I was recording on the mic. So I do that, and then I'll send it off to a producer, work with them, get it sounding as good as possible, and then it's obviously ready for release.
Who's your producer, out of interest?
So I've used 2 guys on the EP. For most of the track, I've used Jack from Surrey Studios.
Okay.
Who's a really cool guy, really, really awesome guy. He does a great job. I sat with him. He mixed Howlin' at the Moon, and I sat with him through it. Unfortunately, because of lockdown, I couldn't sit with him for some of the other mixes. But just watching him work was really, really, really cool, because he does it all analog. So it's really impressive, and you sort of hear like even things that I was hearing the kick drum on the song, and then he was just like, right, plug this in, blah 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 blah, and suddenly the sound just transformed, and it was so much bigger, sounded so much better.
Nice. And when it comes to performing live, obviously you mentioned earlier that you've performed over the years, but obviously when stuff's gone a bit awry, have you had a chance to get your country stuff out to many people at all, or?
Sadly not. Only sort of where I've, as I say, played online and things like that. That's pretty much it. Because I'm still relatively. I mean, I've been doing the country stuff for just over a year. Was when I started sort of writing the EP, and I haven't gigged for a little while, just because I didn't really have anything to gig, and I do get I get quite bad stage anxiety sometimes, so that is one of the reasons why I kind of stopped gigging a little bit. I love doing it once I'm up there. Don't get me wrong, once I'm up there, I love doing it, and it's the best feeling in the world after you come off the stage, especially if it's gone, even if a little bit's gone wrong. If you've got a great crowd there, and and they're sort of vibing with you, it's the best feeling you can. It's almost like being drunk. It's that feeling of euphoria, like you get such a high from it. It's just a feeling of pure happiness, and I absolutely love it. And I want to get out gigging again. I'm dying to do it. And I've got some great friends of mine as well, who are really good musicians, that I want to get out there with me.
Yeah,
and get the EP out to the world.
And obviously the EP's out to buy now on your website, and it's coming out on digital later this year. I think it's October. Is that right? If I remember that right?
Yeah, so that's the plan, is October. It just depends how it kind of goes, really. The plan is 3 single releases and then the EP afterwards. But you never know, that could change. But they're out as physical releases out, so you can buy the CD on the website. So it is available regardless.
Was there any temptation with everything going on to delay it, or did you just want to get something out there?
I've been dying to get music out there for a long time. I couldn't delay it anymore. I think my mum would have killed me. She's kind of saying, "So when are you?" Every time I go down to Pagham and see her, she's saying, "So when are you going to release music? When's music coming out? Are you writing music at the moment?" And I've always kind of said, "Yes, soon, mum, soon, mum." But now, I mean, she was so proud when the single came out, and the single hit 1,000 streams.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's doing really well.
Yeah, which is great. 900 of those are my mum. Thanks, mum. Probably another 50 on my nan. Thanks, nan. Which is amazing. It's really, really, really cool. Especially as, like you said, I'm pretty new on the scene. So to get that kind of reaction has been really, really great.
Yeah.
Overwhelming.
So let's talk about songwriter then. Let's get into the nitty gritty. Do you have a process, or are you kind of a spark of inspiration type, jot something down type person, or? It's
definitely inspiration. Yeah. It's got to be, for me, so if you could see my phone right now, you'd see about 1 million different recordings, voice recordings from where, and they're incredibly embarrassing as well. They're just me singing different random melodies and things that just pop into my head. And if I feel the inspiration, I'll sit down and write it, because what I've found, especially with myself, is that you can't force it. You've got to, if I'm struggling to write something, I would take a break and come back to it, because if you force it, you end up with something that you're just not quite happy with, and not quite as good as it could be. So a lot of the time it can either be a vocal melody or a lyric that I just sort of think of that I really like, or a guitar line, whatever. And then I just sort of build it up from around that, and then sort of create what I can. A lot of the time I try and sort of look back at my voice memos when I'm doing that, and see if I can incorporate another idea that I've had and sort of mix them together. Yeah.
Have you ventured into the world of co-writing yet, or have you just done pure solo?
At university, I co-wrote a little bit, but I'd love to do some co-writing with someone. That'd be really, really cool. But yeah, just solo at the moment. I enjoy songwriting. It's quite a lonely process, but it's very soothing. It's good for the soul. It really can take your mind off things, writing a song, especially if you're writing about something you're particularly passionate about, or something that you're feeling. It's good to sort of get it out onto paper, and
Would you say you're mainly autobiographical in what you write then, or do you sometimes create narratives as well?
Mainly it's kind of a mix.
Yeah.
To be honest, I mean, the last song in the EP is called The Ballad of Joseph Murphy, which is definitely not about me, because it's about a guy from the Old West, and he gets dragged into a gang robbing a stagecoach, and he ends up accidentally shooting someone, and then getting framed, and it's basically about his sort of redemption and stuff. And what really made me laugh was I gave my nan the EP last week, and she texted me when she got home. She played it in the car, and she said, "Oh, I love that EP. I really, really associate with that Joseph Murphy song." I think, what? What do you associate with that, Nan? So she's obviously got this secret double life.
Did you not question that? That's concerning.
I didn't want to. You know, if she has shot someone, I don't want to start.
I'm always interested when people first start out on the scene. Are you being quite strategic with things? Like, do you have a sort of a roadmap of how you want things to go, or are you kind of taking each day as it comes? I guess it's harder at the moment, isn't it, to roadmap? Yeah,
definitely. It's kind of a mix between the two. I have a plan, obviously, but you can never plan fully for anything because you just don't know what's coming up around the corner.
Yeah,
and you kind of have to be prepared to chop and change things according to kind of things that happen. Yeah, I do have a plan for the next few sort of months, and then I'm already writing again for another single. I started writing, funny enough, yesterday. So yeah, I mean, I've got a plan, as I said, but like it can change.
Yeah, of course. And who are you listening to at the moment? Who's on your playlists?
Luke Combs is one of my favourites. I was meant to see him at C2C this year.
Yeah.
I go to C2C every year. I love it. It's one of my favourite times of the year. Obviously, because of COVID, it didn't happen. I was gutted because it would have been the second time I'd seen him. I saw him in Nashville, and he was awesome. Yeah, I love everything he does. Chris Stapleton, I'm a massive fan of. Always been a massive fan of his. I saw him at CC live.
That was great.
Yeah, amazing. He was almost too good. It was concerning. It was like, he literally sounded exactly like the record. It was crazy. Yeah, I sort of bounce between. I mean, I've got a country playlist, and I'm always adding to it all the time, just new artists and things. If I hear something that I like, I've been listening to quite a bit of Dwight Yoakam lately.
Okay.
Just because I never really heard a lot of this stuff until a few months back, and I heard Guitars Cadillacs, and I was like, oh wow, this is awesome, I really like this. So I started listening more of him, and George Jones as well is someone I've started listening to more, because exactly. Because I'd listened to a country podcast, country history podcast. Cocaine and Rhinestones, it's called. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. But he mentioned on there, George Jones, and in that, and I was kind of like, so that kind of made me want to listen back to more people like Tammy Wynette, George Jones, a bit more Johnny Cash, Hank Williams, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Last two questions. As I said to you before we start recording, everyone gets these last two questions. If anyone's heard the podcast before, they'll know what's coming. So, if you could only have one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Probably my girlfriend's mum's lasagna that she makes.
You're now in one of the top three answers.
Oh, there we go. Because I think if she listened to this and I didn't say that, she'd kill me. Yeah, that's one of my favorite meals. It's absolutely amazing. You can't beat a good home cooked meal. As much as I love going out to eat and stuff like that as well.
Everyone picks one variation of pasta.
Yeah, it's got to be
good all rounder. One drink. You can have alcoholic, non-alcoholic, or both. I
mean, alcoholic sounds a bit dangerous to drink forever, but my go-to is a Jack Daniels and Coke normally. So yeah, we'll just go for that. I mean, I love a pineapple juice if we're going, or a mango juice. I love mango juice, that kind of thing. But if we're going alcoholic, yeah, always going to be a JD and Coke. It's got to be.
Do you like the honey one, or was that not for you?
I do. I like it with. I tried it with lemonade recently, and I quite like that.
It's very sweet though.
Yeah, it is. It's not to everyone's taste. I mean, I do prefer. I do prefer with Coke.
Ever just on the rocks?
Not so much with Jack Daniels, but sort of with like a Jameson's or something like that. Maybe not whiskey. Bourbon's not so much on the rocks, but that's just my particular taste. I like to mix them.
Okay, right. So hopefully, all being well, we will see you live somewhere soon, wherever we can actually see shows of people with sensible sized audiences.
Definitely.
Which is probably another debate or another podcast discussion that we won't go into. Mitchell, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
There we go, my sit down with Mitchell Kersley. What a great guy. His debut single, If You Need Someone to Love You, is out now on all platforms, and if you want a copy of his EP, Dusk, you can get physical copies on mitchellkersley.com, or if you want to wait, the digital release will follow later this year. If you do like the podcast, please do like, subscribe, give a review, all that good stuff. It's massively appreciated. You can find the show on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, and if you want to contact me, please pop an email to totalcountrypod@gmail.com. In my next episode, I'll be joined by Holloway Road. But that's all for now. I've been Kevin, you've been great. Thanks for joining me. Stay safe, keep it country. Bye for now.